2008 to order, and same process to excuse Councilman Brown from the meeting this morning. I understand that Mr. Workman may be here shortly. Until such time as he's here, we would like to excuse him and acknowledge him upon his arrival. This meeting has been properly noticed and posted in compliance with the open meeting law. Our first point of business on agenda item 3 is approval of the final minutes for the July 17, 2008 audit committee meeting. Do we have any corrections, additions, removals? If not, I will entertain a motion for approval. Is there a second? It's been moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Agenda item 4, discussion of possible action on scheduled meeting dates. The purpose for the anticipatory scheduled meeting dates is to allow each one of us and each of the affected departments to have on their calendars at least what the proposed dates are, which are always subject to change. For our purposes, the proposed dates on slide 2, that's not up here, this is Thursday, January 22nd, 2009, Thursday, April 23, 2009, Thursday, July 16, 2009, Thursday, October 15, 2009. Do we have any discussions on these proposed dates?
Mr. Chairman, I might mention something about the dates. The first one up here, that's usually we have it on the third Thursday. The reason that's on the fourth Thursday is the first Thursday is January the 1st. And so we bumped it down to the fourth Thursday. The second one in April, on April the 23rd, is on the fourth Thursday also, and that's a week after.
My misery.
Yeah.
I truly do appreciate that. Do you want to explain the other dates?
The other dates are the third Thursdays.
Let me explain October 15th, the final meeting on October 15th. That is the final due date for my profession for individual tax returns. And there's a tendency and propensity for a number of taxpayers to not want to file their returns or until October 15th. So for that, it's a big date. Any further discussions? Is there a motion? I would suggest we do.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. So carried. We will now have agenda item 5, a general report from the city auditor. Mr. Snowden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The current audits that are open and in process are the Fire Prevention Division audit led by Brian Smith, and that's in the planning stage. The D&E intake audit, that's being led by Nancy Beatty, and that's kind of between the planning, and I think we're starting to get into some of the field work on that. Credit card audit, which is on credit card receipting, which is on hold based on an evaluation of an outside audit done, an outside contractor's work done related to credit card receipting. We're going to evaluate that and then see if all the issues that we thought should have been addressed were, and then move forward with that. The citywide software audit, that currently is on hold, and that's being led by Phil Marmorowski. And we have a number of contract reviews. We only have one listed up there, or one that is close to being done. That's being led by Phil Marmorowski. It deals with Delphi Research. We've got 3 others that we're in the process of doing, and this is an area that has been requested that we look at related to consent agenda items and contract reviews. We have in investigations, we have 9 investigations that are in process at the current time. Those are being led by Gary Phillips, and currently we have 5 control reviews that have been completed, and that also is being is work being led by Gary Phillips. I would like to make a brief report just for a moment on one of the issues that came up during our review of budget information last year. We do have 2 substitute employees that are working with us at this time. One is a UNLV student, Michael Mendolfo, who is here today. and I'd like to introduce him. And also we have another substitute employee that's working with us on performance audits, and that's Bruce Wagner. Bruce is here with us today. I think Mr. Kern may know Bruce.
I do know Bruce, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for him.
Going forward with a brief training report, since July the 17th, the following training has been completed in fulfillment of the 2008 training requirement. The first one listed up there, 5 attended a luncheon meeting discussing recent fraud trends. This was sponsored by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, and this meeting was part of our annual membership, and therefore there was no cost related to that. The next one was 1 attended a luncheon meeting discussing PCI and log monitoring. This was sponsored by ISACA at a cost of $25. The next one is 1 attended a computer security conference by ISACA. This conference would have cost approximately $1,500, but because of involvement in a local chapter, there was no charge for that one. 1 attended a financial crimes and digital evidence program sponsored by SOFAST at a cost of $859. The next one is 3 attended a luncheon meeting discussing risk assessment sponsored by the Institute of Internal Auditors at a cost of $30 each. 6 attended the annual seminar on internal investigation sponsored by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners at no charge. This seminar was part of our annual membership, so that's a very cost-effective way to pick up several hours. And finally, 1 completed a self-study ethics course at a cost of $55. The only one that actually had a test at the end of it was the self-study course. This concludes my report.
What was the test score for the self-study office?
Brian?
It was 100%.
I would expect that, Brian. There's an item that I believe that's missing from the CPE that should also qualify for CPE, and that is when folks attend these CPE sessions, or you also collectively have in a round table follow-up for an hour to review what whoever attended and gleaned from that seminar, so that information is being shared amongst your entire group.
Yeah, we will do that. That was one of the items that we discussed, and we thought that was, in fact, that was suggested by someone on the staff also, that that's an excellent way to shore up the fact that the person who attended the course had a good understanding of what was being taught, and then we can have an in-house seminar reviewing what was discovered.
With respect to the computer and security conference, financial crimes and digital and other risk assessments, did any of that cover identity theft?
For one thing, the luncheon that we attended up there on the recent fraud trends, I believe that had a section on it on identity theft. Also, within the basic thrust of the luncheon meeting discussing PCI, which is the payment card industry, has a lot to do with identity theft issues with that. And I believe the security...
It did, exactly right. In fact, they even started off with the chief security officer from PayPal gave the opening speech at that and said what kinds of problems they were having.
PayPal is an excellent organization, and I use them in a part of my life for what I call campaign contributions. But one of the issues is the new implementations that is required now is October 4th, as imposed by the statute that select certain type of information related to Social Security numbers, employer identification numbers, and certain types of financial information, including bank records, credit card information, the password is reported shared through email systems. We understand that contracts come in, there's information being received by the city, at least from prior audits that have taken place. I don't know, maybe this is a question for council, does that statute now apply to municipalities as well? And if it does, are we in compliance with not emailing and sending out this information that contains maybe Councilman Steve's personal information because he's seen a contract in the city, and or is the credit card information that folks have and the emails are going out. There's also should, and I'm not saying should, but there's consideration being given through at least the fraud industry, and I know municipality managers are being trained on this, to be cognizant when you're going in on the internal audits, to be aware that there are now requirements that other states have imposed on government agencies. Can we determine if that is applicable to the city?
I have to confess I'm unfamiliar with the requirement, which brings up the possibility it does not apply to us, but it could be that it does, and we are non-compliant. What I'm having is some difficulty imagining the occasions when we would be emailing somebody's social security number that wasn't connected with criminal business, or an account number being emailed outside. You have some knowledge of this?
Exactly. Actually, part of the credit card receiving audit, we were looking at credit card information and social security numbers, and we did find instances of that happening and reports that existed that were being printed out. But through the process of that, and I think with our consultant coming in and people saying, work I did, work Philip did, of saying, yeah, I get this report, but I don't need it because I can look up that information and I don't need to send that information. So I think a lot of that has been eliminated through that.
Well, there are two things going here. One of them could be a simple security measure, even if it isn't imposed on us by the legislature. But the essential question, do you know if we are required to password protect any email transmission that contains an account number or social security number?
I don't know if we're required to. A lot of our, our email is not, protected in any way. It's in clear text, so people can read it. So, and again, people can request it also.
I excuse myself for 5 minutes and see if I can find out an answer today.
Right.
So we can complete this discussion if it applies to us. Because if it doesn't apply to us, it leaves up the whole possibility of us working up our own compliance measures that are similar, better, or nearly as good as the law now requires. But I don't know the fundamental answer to the question. Candace, have you heard anything like this? Well, let's keep our fingers crossed and hope it's not imposed on us by law. Do you think it is effective now or soon to be effective?
It's effective as of October 1st.
In the audit that I think that Nancy did related to some of the human resources transmissions, we actually did find some confidential information that was moving back and forth via email, but that I believe stopped.
Actually, it related to reports that Human Resources creates and prints out, and they did an analysis to ensure that only the reports that were vital to have social security numbers were on the reports, and they restricted access to only those individuals who had a need to use those reports. There's certain areas, like with the state, that require to have social security numbers on the reports.
Part of the penetration testing that the outside consultant did was directed towards these types of issues. I would hate to say that we couldn't find somebody who's actually emailing.
I only raised the question, so I'll defer. I do, if we could take a 5-minute break, is that okay? I can get you this.
Why don't you continue rolling? I can step into the next room, call our legislative fellow and get him on it, and then we can take a break later and I can collect the information.
Okay.
I'm imagining just off the top of my head that it's very common that in our criminal section there are transmissions from one lawyer to another that uses his social security number as an identifier for a criminal defendant. I can certainly imagine somebody in HR in records transmitting info to somebody on benefits to try to get a problem solved for an employee's insurance claim that might include the number. And in the past, I certainly would have presumed we would have password protected all of those communications. We need to find out what's blind or not.
There's also a security tool at IT that the security administrator runs occasionally to look out on the network of any files that are out there that do have that have social security or credit card numbers in them, and then he contacts that person to see what the need for that is.
And again, I raised the question because of the training folks that have gone through here, if any event that may have been raised as a topic, so to speak, for municipalities, state locals to be aware of. I don't have an answer.
If you excuse me for 90 seconds, I'm going to at least get the query started and maybe we can get an answer. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Do we have any further discussion on training? And we have a motion to accept this report. Been moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Agenda item 6, discussion and possible action on the audit of sanitary sewer system maintenance section.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian Smith was the auditor on this, the lead auditor on this audit, and will present the results of our audit.
Morning, committee members. Our office completed an audit of the sanitary sewer system maintenance section of the Streets and Sanitation Division of the Department of Field Operations. I'd like to acknowledge the attendance today of Jerry Walker and Tracy Scott. Jerry is the Deputy Director of Field Operations and also the Manager of Streets and Sanitation, and Tracy is the Superintendent. And I'd like to thank them for their help in working through this audit. As defined in the municipal code, the city is responsible for maintaining all sewer main facilities installed in city-owned rights-of-ways and easements. Private property owners are responsible for the maintenance of the sewer laterals that connect to the city's sewer lines. Sewer maintenance performs this required function for the city through routine maintenance and repairs of approximately 1,500 of the 1,700 miles of sewer lines. The remaining 200 miles of sewer lines are high-flow arterial collectors that are self-cleaning due to the high flow rates. Sewer maintenance also provides construction support for the maintenance and repair of sewer lines and related components, the manholes, the roadway collars. Sewer maintenance responds to sewer stoppages and overflows. Sewer maintenance follows specific reporting requirements of the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection when it encounters sewer stoppages and overflows. Sewer maintenance also coordinates the video inspections of new sewer lines and reviews the results of the inspections. Sewer maintenance staff members include a foreman, 2 crew leaders, an inspector, and 19 maintenance workers. And they are directly overseen by the Deputy Field Operations Director, Jerry Walker, and the Superintendent of Streets and Sanitation, Tracy Scott. We've got some photos to show you. As seen in these photos, maintenance crews systematically clean the sewer lines using high-pressure water nozzles and vacuums on trucks called vectors. Pretty fun to go out there and see the cockroaches scramble as you open up the manhole covers. Onto the next photos. These are photos of the outside contractor's video inspection truck and camera line and a supply storage building used by sewer maintenance. The scope of this audit was limited to the operations of the sanitary sewer maintenance section. Detailed testing of records was primarily limited to transactions during calendar year 2007. The last fieldwork date of this audit was May 27, 2008. I'd now like to give you a brief summary of our findings. Details on each of these findings are found within the report. Improvements are needed in sewer maintenance as record-keeping practices to facilitate the summarization of operational activity and support management reporting. Clarification is needed from the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection on whether stoppages without an overflow need to be reported. Internal documentation, policies, and procedures are needed, giving direction to employees on how to comply with the spill reporting policy. An intergovernmental agreement with Clark County is needed, giving sewer maintenance access rights to city sewer lines that run through county land. Sewer maintenance should pursue transferring the responsibility and cost for video inspections of sewer lines to contractors and developers. If this is not done, improvements are needed in the current administration of the video inspection program. Sewer maintenance, working with Public Works, needs to evaluate what additional measures need to be taken to comply with the call before you dig regulations found in NRS 455 and document its compliance methodology, policies, and procedures. Sewer maintenance needs to document and implement a formal equipment and supplies inventory control program. The field operations safety and health officer should regularly summarize the training status of sewer maintenance employees in relation to OSHA and city safety training requirements and make this information available to sewer maintenance management. The appropriateness and value of the current performance measurements needs to be evaluated. The definition and derivation of the performance measurements need to be documented. Enhancements are needed to the sewer problem reporting screens on the city's website, and standard operating procedures are needed for the primary functions of the sewer maintenance division. Management's responses to the audit findings can be found at the back of the report, along with their expected dates of completion. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have regarding this report.
Do we have any questions?
I'm glad that your abbreviated version is just that, abbreviated as compared to the
Yeah.
full report. I never knew an audit of sewer maintenance could be so fascinating.
Yeah,
Could
it's,
you just put in simple language what your findings are?
you know, what I found is internally, policies and procedures, there just needs to be more documented policies and procedures giving direction to staff. There are some reporting issues, as I mentioned, with the state that are pretty important as to whether we need to report when there is a sewer overflow or a stoppage. Does that stoppage need to be reported? Because these maintenance staff, they come upon stoppages all the time. It's a pretty regular occurrence, depending
How
on.
do they find a stoppage? You said they come upon it. Is there a backflow into somebody's house or?
Well, they receive complaints into the department. If there's an odor, somebody might report that. When there's an overflow, it's pretty obvious. Jerry, do you have?
Well, during routine cleaning, we'll hit obstruction and stoppage. We've always erred on the side of caution. The NDEP reporting policies new within 5 years. We've always tried to be proactive and give NDEP everything they would like, since they have severe regulatory authority over us, citation fine. So we erred on the side of caution. Even if we noted an obstruction, we documented it because I'd like to know if I continue to have obstructions there. If there's some place where I continue to have a grease obstruction, maybe somebody's running an illegal restaurant up the street from me. So we used our SSO reporting to report also the obstructions we noted without an SSO. Brian's right, that is unnecessary. We make ourselves look bad by reporting more than stoppages that we need to report. All NDEP really cares about is our overflows, and then they only care about two categories. One, if we overflow because of capacity. So if we have an overused line, because that's just going to continue to overflow. They're very concerned about that. Two, they want to know the big overflows with potential for public contamination. So if we dump 5,000 gallons, 20,000 gallons into the wash, they want to know because that's going downstream and affecting downstream people, and there's an issue there for public contamination. So their real concern is, do we have capacity issues? And did we endanger anybody? A normal overflow, and we get to them pretty quick, we're probably the best in the state on our SSO response, is what I've been led to believe by NDEP. So if we just dump 500 gallons into the roadway, it goes into the storm drain, and we disinfect everything and clean it all up in a timely manner, they just need to be notified. They really don't care. It's the 20,000 gallon spill they want to hear about. So for the most part, our SSO runs well, but we do need to put recording the stoppages. We do need to have procedures, as Brian pointed out, since we need to make sure we respond in a timely and efficient manner, and not only that, but document it to the point that they have can't cite us after the fact.
And I think you just answered what was going to be my next question, which is generally speaking, our sewers are operating efficiently and our maintenance of our sewer systems is an efficient process subject to some of the improvements that you're recommending?
Yeah, I was impressed. They have the whole city is geographically assigned to maintenance teams, and they're routinely working their way across these areas of the city. And once they've completed that area, they'll return and start again. Now, inevitably, there are problem areas in the sewer lines, and the guys know about. They know about those areas, and they're routinely checking on those areas. In fact, I had the opportunity to go out to one of those problem areas and see a stoppage, and so
Exciting.
yeah.
Was this department the sewer maintenance division of your department, I guess, Jerry, affected at all by the fundamental service review?
We are an enterprise fund, so we cannot sanitary sewer, so we're not, the general fund, you can cut our budgets, you can't use the money for the general fund. We did, however, and after discussion with Brian, knew we had this video program that was basically no longer needed due to the decline in development, and worked with Brian on that, and we put that into the fundamental service review to eliminate the staff member that oversees the video inspection. His loaded salary with the trucks, probably $120,000 a year. We were spending about $120,000 a year paying for this video footage. And really what we're doing is subsidizing development. Even if development is still going, we shouldn't be doing this. So we'll put it in based on Brian's recommendation in the functional service review, and we'll move to eliminate that position and eliminate that program. And what we'll do is change one paragraph. We'll add one paragraph in conjunction with CAO to the offsite improvement agreement that says developers shall provide video with forms, stamped, certified, submitted to us as a condition of acceptance of the road IT agreement.
Good, that's good.
Thank you. Yeah.
And that, $250,000 a year in savings for us.
Thank you.
Brian, the dates that have been indicated for completion, there are dates that are estimated in July, October, November. But those dates, other than November,
You know, I haven't had. There hasn't been any communication yet from management asking me to come out and verify that these findings have been complete.
I can answer.
Once.
We've got some draft sheets ready.
Yeah.
And basically they're kind of held up at my level, so no, I've let dates slip. I've already missed the dates based on the fact that we're kind of tied up on functional service review, personally some arbitration activities. So I was a little optimistic on my dates. They are in process, but we've already missed the first couple of days.
And Jerry has been. He shoots me emails periodically to give me updates on, for example, that video inspection program. He's been keeping me in the loop on his progress on that.
do we have any further discussions? Is there a motion?
To accept the report?
Accept the report, yes.
So moved.
Second. Been moved and second, all in favor? Aye. Agenda item 7, discussion of possible action on the internal control review activity report, June 30, 2022.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Gary Phillips was the lead in completing the internal control review memos, and also was the lead in compiling the report, and he'll report to us on the results.
The Internal Control Review Activity Report is through June 30th, 2008. There was 8 internal control review memos issued since June 30th, 2007. The Internal Control Review Report had 28 recommendations. 3 are from one report from the City Attorney's Office. 3 are from one report from the Finance and Business Services, and 22 recommendations from 6 reports for Leisure Services. City Attorney's Office, 3 recommendations on delayed deposits. Finance and Business Services, was Durango Hills Golf Course deposit theft, 3 recommendations. Leisure Services, West Community Center, short deposit. Muni Sports, missing funds. Property theft and procurement fraud. And a missing safe key deposit at Doolittle Community Center, misuse of FedEx account, and Muni Sports missing funds, 5 recommendations. Management agreed with all 28 recommendations. These recommendations will be tracked and in our follow-up database. That concludes my report. Any questions?
Do we have any discussion?
It seems to me that many of our reviews or audits are reactionary to a problem, meaning there's a theft or there's an odd occurrence and we react to that and we discover the problem and we make recommendations to correct it. That's good. But are we being proactive, and this is a question for you, sir, as well as Rad, in looking for things that may come to us in the future so that we don't have to wait for an employee to steal something before we react to it? I mean, cash.
Yes.
Bottom line is cash, not exclusively, but in many of these situations. So are we doing things in a proactive way so that we can avoid future thefts?
Yes, we are. With Leisure Services, Bill Tyler and staff, we discuss some of the issues that come up, and we do brief us and Tim Shetler's people. We do have fraud briefings to safety and Leisure Services employees probably 3-4 times a year. We do meet with the staff. We try to come up with ideas to do away with cash or at least centralize it. And Leisure Services just went to a central site for safety payments that hopefully will cut down on some of this cash walking away and tighten up on their procedures. These training courses that we do go to, even though we might not be tested, but we do come back with information that we try to get out to the directors and implement. So,
Councilman, also in addition to that, I'd like Bill Tyler just to touch on the central location of handling cash and what he does at the safety side. I think it's really proactive what we're talking about. So, Mr. Tyler, if you tell a little bit of what you implemented in your division.
Yes, good morning. Bill Tyler, Leisure Services, Recreation Division. And what we've been able to do is to shrink down our opportunity for cash handling out in our safety sites from 69 down to our central locations, which are recreation centers and our administrative offices. So instead of staff out in the field gathering cash, where they now go to our regular centers where we have full-time staff and much more monitoring of our cash and cash handling procedures.
And what's important about that, Councilman, is if they do want to pay at the safety side, they're allowed to take the credit card.
Well, that's was going to be my exact question. The average safe key payment is how much?
$35.
Okay, I was going to say if it was below the minimum required for a credit card, then that might have not have been a problem. Don't most people have credit cards? If we went to an all credit card system, would we be precluding some people for services because they don't have credit cards?
67% of people pay with cash and safety.
67, okay.
Yes, sir. We are, though, looking at a punch card system, and also we are looking at another credit card system that will allow people to put money on a card, and when they come in, it just deducts it as they do use the service, and that's one of the things that we're researching now.
And it's also interesting to note that we thought we were going to have a lot of complaints by going this route, but it was very minimal complaints that we received, so they adapted. The service we provide is invaluable for the community, so there's
Brad, did you have a comment?
well, this whole process, we just don't write a report and give it to the director and we say, we got you. We start at the lowest level of management. We discuss it. We bring it up to managers like Bill Tyler. Then when we get up to the director's level, we come and talk to the city manager's office, normally 4 of them. Then we'll come up and talk to the council and the mayor and then bring it here. So there is a lot, and even in the P-card training, we give that whole scenario that, you know, we're looking, we're going to act on it, and it's just not our office. It's a joint effort with everyone in the city to be proactive and to look at ways.
And that's great. And I remember hearing about the centralization of the safe key at a briefing just in the last month or two, I think.
One other thing, Councilman Wilson. Virtually every performance audit that we do has a component in it where we go in and look at the controls. So we do an evaluation of controls at that time, and we'll, if there's something that's deficient that we find, then we'll make a recommendation to improve that. I think an excellent example of that, going back, unfortunately, back to safety again, was the report on cash collection that the controls over cash collection that Brian did. We'll see in a minute here. There's still 4 out there that are being worked on. So we are looking at controls every opportunity we have, and what we're really pushing now is to try to get when we find a problem or a control weakness, we're trying to work to the point that the fix is replicated every place we can find an opportunity that would apply. So we are doing, in that way, we're proactively going out and looking for things.
Me ask a question. Our outside auditors, what have their findings been as it relates to the internal controls for each of the departments?
I'm sorry, could you ask the question?
What has the findings of the outside audit been as it relates to the internal controls for each of the departments, as well as the city overall?
We have no specific, we have KPMG as our outside audit firm, they're currently in right now. And we have no specific findings in this area of cash handling that have been brought to our attention by them in the last 5 years.
And Mark Vincent and I have had this conversation, and we have had some findings. What were those findings?
I do not know this answer.
The reason I'm raising the question is we actually have at least 3 elements for internal control checks and balances. We have the responsible department heads, if you will. They're responsible for the implementation of the programs. We have then that's the proactive. We have the reactive, which is the city auditor and his staff. And we have KPMG, and I would suggest to you that KPMG is not capable or permitted to sign off on the city's audit report unless they themselves have done at least an overview on the evaluation of internal controls. So it's disappointing to hear in 5 years that there have been findings, and I do believe Mark Nissen is represented to this group. There have been findings.
Not that I know specifically in the cash handling. I know we've had to review some of our procedures. We're a lot more proactive with our processes. We have people providing statistics on a daily basis. Excuse me. On leisure services, specifically cash handling, because of internal audit of KPMG. There may be some.
And let me take those that are here, at least for the benefit of this board, back a few years. There were some serious internal control deficiencies. At the time, Dr. Jackson had identified some, and to her credit, she came to city auditors to have assistance in helping both to identify and correct. We had the municipal court who had some serious deficiencies. I don't recall at this point if they contacted us or if that was as a result of the findings from the city auditor's audit. Over the course of the years, the implementations that have taken place for internal control purposes that the department head due to the city auditors, as well as the department heads, has really brought the city to a level that I think when you compare to other municipalities, other local state organizations, is beyond comparison. We're well beyond that scope. At one time, it was not $170 of cash that had been misappropriated. We were talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those controls have been put in place, and that's a compliment to everybody that's a responsible person, if you will, within the city. The city auditor is reactive. They should be proactive as it comes to, we've become aware of new issues that are out in the public arena or forum from the training that we receive. They're not the ones who are implementing. They share that information. It then comes back to the department heads to fulfill that responsibility, look at their own controls, if you will, and make those implementations. To the credit, at least for while I've been on this board, those implementations have, through the city manager's office and through other groups, have been accepted, and they are being implemented, and we're seeing that when we begin to look at these reports. Cash is one of those fungible products that we all know it's easy to disappear. And I agree with the council, the credit cards would be my choice as well for payment purposes. But given the current state of our economy, I question how many people have active credit cards. It becomes very difficult. So these programs are made available, people are walking in with cash payments. I rambled a lot here, but I think, Gary, what I'm really saying with some of the recommendations that are here 3 or 4 years ago, we were appalled, maybe it was further back from that, with some of the findings compared to what the findings are today. So that's my little dissertation on history that's taken place.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah.
Could you come up and acknowledge yourself for the record, please?
Candace Walden, Finance and Business Services. I know with leisure, excuse me, we worked very actively the last couple of years because of these cash transactions. We have the large Mayor's Cup. As part of that, we went and took cash out of the process, and we went to a system of preloaded, or excuse me, loaded debit cards. Once we reconciled what we needed to pay referees, preloaded debit cards. So we've been working very hard as they identify areas that we could move towards not having cash to take that out of the hands.
I think that's excellent. And I have to tell you, leisure service out, with the exception of municipal courts, probably has the greatest challenge because of the number of folks that they're servicing. That has to be a tremendous challenge for them. And it's been appreciated over the years, the implementations of controls that have been put in place. Do we have any further discussion?
Chairman Kern, real quick, also, what they've done at the following of this audit committee, Leisure Services are very proactive, I guess, in doing the bioscan, because we also found out that people were, walking in without going through or paying for their daily fees. So they implemented a bioscan that not only saves on cost of materials and et cetera, saves, I can think of a tune of $125,000 a year by going this route. But it is a very innovative advance, and I think we're the first leisure services in the country that have this implemented today. I'm not sure if Bill has any more information on it, but it was implemented about 6 months ago as well. We were concerned that the seniors were not liking it because they're always thinking that you're taking government's taking your identity or whatever, but it just takes like 5 little points on the finger. It's not a full fingerprint, and it allows people to come in. It's a good tracking mechanism of who's using our centers, and it's really advanced for what we're doing right now. So as a result of this audit, and also for the director for that department are moving that way so we can get technology involved and help us in our efforts to maintain who's coming into our centers.
How many centers is there? You know any idea? 23 centers?
43.
43.
And safety sites, there's
69.
69 safety sites. That's pretty massive.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Is there a motion to accept the?
So,
Second all in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, as you wrap this subject, I do have some info for you on the question you raised about our encryption operations and the secure data. I got a copy of the bill that was passed last session, and there is a particular component of it that was made effective the first day of this month, which is pretty unusual because most bills are effective when signed or the following October. So they gave people lead time because it doesn't pose some special obligations. And I can tell you that it actually creates a couple of new crimes connected to identity theft, which are pretty serious, like the 1 to 20 felonies. And when I was a prosecutor, you could steal $1 million and it was a 1 to 10. If you take any data and wrongfully use it now, this statute from 2007 makes it a 1 to 20 felony. Anyway, what is to be protected is social security numbers, driver's license numbers, account numbers, credit card numbers, debit card numbers, and the passwords and by implication, I would suppose the pins that go with those type of cards. Any holder of this data, which would include the government, has an obligation to implement and maintain reasonable security measures to protect those records from unauthorized access, acquisition, destruction, use, or modification. I am informed by our IT department that all of that data that we possess that is in our databases is encrypted now. So they believe they are compliant with this requirement that they take reasonable measures to protect it. There is a new obligation imposed on any holder of such data, which would include this government, that if there's a breach, we now have an affirmative obligation to notify. We hear these stories as they've recurred over the last few years, but I think that the notifications have always been voluntary. Now we must, unless the police notify us that they don't want us to because they're hot on the trail and the notification might blow their case. So that obligation now is imposed by law, and everybody possesses such data. Finally, there is the new provision that triggered your question, and it specifically applies to a business in the state, as opposed to the definition they use for the government possessors of such data. A business in the state may no longer transfer any personal information of a customer through an electronic transmission other than a facsimile to a person outside their secure system unless the business uses encryption to ensure the security of electronic transmission. So the new law imposes the obligation only on businesses, not on us. And I am also informed by IT that if I were, or if that benefits clerk in our HR department transmitted a social security number to a records clerk, that at this point in time it would not be an encrypted transmission, but that nevertheless we are compliant with the law because the data as it's stored is all encrypted. So we're not doing all that private businesses must now do, but we appear to be doing everything that the new law requires.
Question, please. I think this is important enough that I'd like the entire city council to be briefed on this. So if you could, whether it's yourself or Brad, one of our city managers' briefing schedules in 2 or 4 weeks. I'm not going to be here in 2 weeks, but maybe 4 weeks. The first, perhaps, week of November. I think the mayor and the city council should be briefed. I think we need to know exactly what the new requirements are for what we are talking about.
Okay, I'll take care of it.
Any further questions on this?
I was asked specifically who has a new NRS number, and eventually, perhaps now, well, what I've got is the bill, and it was SB 347 from the 2007 session. With a bill like this, not surprisingly, it changes a whole bunch of existing chapters and sections in the NRS. Sometimes when somebody writes something that's completely independent, unique, and new, they can assign it a number from it. This one is going to get worked into a bunch of NRS sections, but the bill is recoverable from the LCB Legislative Council Bureau website. It's SB 347 from the
It came out of our
2007
2007 legislature to take effect October 1st of 2008.
There were portions, I think, Councilman, that may have taken place on the normal earlier schedule, and I noticed particularly this one about the encryption of the transmissions for the private businesses. Oh, I take this back. I'm looking at the top of this when it says SB 347, assuming it was from our last session. This may have been from the 2005 session, because when I look at the very last line that has the effective dates, the first dozen sections effective October 1, 2005. The next dozen sections effective New Year's 2006, and then finally, it's just this one part about businesses having to encrypt their emails, not effective until the first of this month. So that's a 2005 section. They get a
So
lot
what they
more
probably
lagging time.
did was forecast that it would take governments a certain period of time to come into compliance, and they said, you got a year and a half to do it, basically.
Yeah, that's very unusual that it stretches out that long.
Well, a general question that I don't really expect an answer or anticipate an answer, but PayPal is a business. It is private business, or is it secure and it's receiving information like remits it back by email or electronically? Even though it's coming to the city, should they be encrypting those files to the city? I think there's a series of questions for businesses that conduct business with the city and what is their responsibility when they're submitting electronically to the city. But that, again, I only raise the question.
The answer to your question is that it appears even for businesses, an internal transmission, like from the benefits clerk to the records clerk within the HR department of PayPal, doesn't have to be encrypted. The encryption obligation that is now imposed on private businesses is a transfer of personal information through an electronic transmission, other than a fax, to a person outside the secure system of the business. So they all have to have it encrypted as they store it in their electronic files. If they squirt it out to anybody else, it must be encrypted. So it looks like an internal obligation doesn't exist.
And I'll give you at least general indicators to what our two accounts we've gone to, one national firm, law firm, and one regional law firm. And specifically, we have inquired with respect to our firm's email transmissions that may contain some of this data. We have been advised by counsel, we have to password encrypt when we submit, in this case, to the city of Las Vegas, if it contains any of that information. So my question is, and I'm not asking for an answer here, will someone consider advising these businesses, such as IT, IT is not receiving password or encrypted materials from that particular business. To pick on KPMG for a moment, hypothetically, KPMG had a laundry list of HR, summary of HR with social security numbers, and it received it from the city, and now it transmits back some of its findings to the city. And those social security numbers are on KPMG's report. Is KPMG required to password or encrypt that information to the city? I only raise a question. I suspect there's a series of things like this that exist.
Let me share this with you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, or the committee. We, when we were working on the
Credit card receiving.
Yeah, the credit card receiving, we were talking to Human Resources, and there was an example of what you're talking about. One of the outside firms was sending information via email to us that was not encrypted, that had to do with employees, had social security numbers, employee numbers on it, and a lot of other information. And I believe that as a result of that, probably the one that's going to be most likely for this to happen is us dealing with personnel information, transferring back and forth between the insurance companies related to, could be related to the medical insurance, or it could be related to workers' comp or something like that. And when we brought that up with Human Resources, that they recognized it as being a problem. So I would like to tell you, but I can't tell you for certain, that they corrected that problem. But one of the issues was the very thing you're talking about.
There was also
when we did that work.
their IDs they had to send to the state too, that the social security numbers were. But I think it was more of an awareness as I started talking to employees. Again, they were receiving reports whether internally or sending them externally. And when they worked with the other people, they found workarounds. I mean, I don't think everybody did, but a lot of the instances they did. I mean, even it came with leisure services. A lot of the credit card information, if a credit card's processed, the information's processed and then it's gone. We don't retain it, except in the class system we were retaining a lot of the information simply because...
It's not you retaining it that I would be concerned with. It's the 13 sites that it hits when the email is transmitted and it's out in the public forum.
Right.
And who can access that, and that's where the identity theft section taking place, is not going to be, if you will, in that vast of who knows. But yeah, I don't want to belabor this point as much as we're aware that there's something that I raised. It only is a question for training, any matters that come up for training. But I think Councilman Wilson knows between the city council and city attorney, maybe there's more consideration to this bill than what we should spend time on here, because that's not our decision for moving policy. As much as an awareness that there is a new provision that's effective as of October 1st, and if it does apply to the city, I suspect the city council will. So.
Mr. Chairman, in addition to the council briefing that Councilman Wilson has asked for, would you like us to come back at the next audit committee meeting and discuss the issues? Because I think some of these issues came up in the testing that the outside consultant did. Maybe we could bring this back as a report and discuss this.
That would be good. We can conclude those.
We'll do that.
Nothing else in this. Agenda item 8, discussion and possible action on the annual audit recommendation follow-up as of June 30, 2008.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The City Auditor's Office has provided 1,052 audit recommendations requiring corrective action to the City Department since January the 1st, 1999. This report summarizes the status of these audit recommendations as of June 30th, 2008. The objectives of our audit program is to ensure that the audit recommendations are being appropriately addressed by city management and tracking them and reporting. Much of the benefit of audit work is not in the findings reported or the recommendations made, but in the effective resolution. City management is responsible for addressing audit recommendations. This follow-up is a process to help management fulfill this responsibility. Related to scope or methodology, our follow-up program is in accordance with the operating instruction A210 of the City Auditor's Office Operating Instruction Manual. The status of each audit recommendation is identified by using the following classifications. Complete. This recommendation has been implemented or some other corrective action has been taken to effectively correct the deficiency. Incomplete. The recommendation has not been implemented. Extended. The recommendation has not been implemented due to circumstances beyond the department's control. Not due. The due date is after the June 30th, 2008 reporting date. For each audit recommendation, city management provides an estimated completion date, and audit recommendation is classified as not being due until that date is passed, and when the audit recommendation then it either becomes incomplete or extended. An audit recommendation remains in one of these classifications until the city manager completes the audit and notifies our office. Subsequently, the audit staff obtains and evaluates evidence supporting management's representation. If the evidence demonstrates that the recommendation has been adequately addressed, the auditor identifies the recommendation as being complete. On this particular slide, you can see the status of the 1,052 recommendations. 1,017 are complete. 13 at the time of the report were marked as incomplete, 20 in the extended category, and 2 in the not due. I'd like to concentrate for a moment on the 13 incomplete recommendations. As of June the 30th, 2008, the annual audit recommendation follow-up included 13 incomplete recommendations. This table lists the number of incomplete recommendations by department. There are a total of 13, 4 of those in fire, 2 in information technology, 4 in leisure services, and 3 in the Office of Administrative Services. Subsequent to the release of the report, Fire Rescue has successfully implemented the 4 recommendations related to the Fire Investigations Bomb Squad. So those have been complete. 2 recommendations as late or as recent as yesterday, the 2 recommendations in information technologies dealing with cell phone charges and long distance telephone calls have been closed. They've been reviewed by our staff and deemed to be complete. So
Is that
those
because,
are.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, is that because they knew that you were going to be reporting to us today?
Well, that may have hastened.
Marcel, well, he's not coming and he can jump on it.
I'll have to let Mike answer that.
In one word answer, yes.
The 4 recommendations in leisure services are related to the audit of safe key collection controls, which we mentioned a little bit earlier about these 4 being still in the incomplete category. These recommendations remain incomplete. However, I will tell you that Leisure Services has stated that they are complete, and what we lack is the actual field work to verify that. So it looks like those will clear soon. The 3 recommendations in the Office of Administrative Services relate to the Durango Hills Community Center contract compliance audit. 2 of the recommendations have been completed, and 1 dealing with other government permits has been reclassified as extended. To summarize, of the 13 incomplete recommendations, 8 have been completed, 1 has been classified as extended, and that only leaves 4 as incomplete. This concludes my report. Either a department head or a representative is present to answer any questions that the committee might have.
Brett, what is the oldest outstanding extended?
The oldest one is
Extended, not.
oh, the extended.
Yeah.
I can answer that one. It has to do with courts. They're hung up on the implementation of the new court system. A lot of the recommendations that we had related to that, and that goes all the way back to 1999. And once that has been implemented, well, then we'll be able to move forward with that. But that's the oldest one.
And some of these are going back to, is it the fiscal year ended or beginning in 2001?
These? Oh, the extended?
For example, the legacy system control deficiencies.
Which one is that? Do you remember?
That's permits, building and safety permit division. And what that is with that one is they have 2 systems. They're going to Hanson. They're not completely out of legacy. They were not going to update the control issues with legacy. They're going to just move into Hanson completely. And they estimate it to be another 13 months before they're fully in.
Another 13 months.
Yeah, and the reason that they're working themselves out of that system. Anything that was in the system originally has remained in there with all the new issues going into the Hanson system.
What is the extended? We have an extension here for the Hanson expired permit. What is that extension quantified in dollars?
That one has been extended because we need to do programming changes in Hanson to account for expired permits. The function that was in there did not work properly, and so they have to have programming changes to Hanson to account for that.
What's the loss, financial loss to the city because it's not complete?
There is no way to really identify that because if the person never comes back in to have the work done on the permit versus a person who comes back in, because some people never have the work actually done. They'll take out permits and they don't actually have the work done. Then there's people who take out the permits and don't have that final inspection done. And then there's the individuals who actually come back in. They have manual processes in place to try to, when people do come back in, to try to catch that, but there's no way to calculate that.
Okay, so it's not possible at this time to quantify financially possible economic loss of the city.
On this particular one, I don't think so.
So why do we continue to extend it if it's costing the city money?
There's a change in the director at Building and Safety, and they stopped the programming
That's an
until that was
excuse. That's an excuse. Why can't they get this fixed? Look how many years it's out there. This isn't your fault. I'm asking a simple question. I understand that.
I don't know that we have an answer for that one.
Well, and I don't know that we're the organization to say, you know, folks, you're costing the city money, because I don't know if they are costing the city money. But I do know this, as city auditors, it's our responsibility to help quantify what some of this loss is, what is the loss.
Chairman Kearns, we do have a meeting tomorrow with Chris Knight, the Director of IT, and Steve Parson from Neighborhood Services, because they were sharing one IT specialized in enhancing between neighborhood services and building and safety. So we're working together to prioritize to get this issue resolved. In addition to the municipal courts, IT's been working with Mr. Carmody. The system's almost there. We're going to be doing testing during the month of December and have it implemented in January.
Okay.
So I think that was finally going to come to.
So can we include a follow-up on, can I call them the dinosaurs that have been extended that potentially could cause the city to be losing the funds because systems have not been implemented to assure that proper payments are being received? Can you have a follow-up on that? And you identify which of those were to include on the agenda, please?
Yes. One of the things we will do, Mr. Chairman, is we'll go back through all of the extendeds and do a review of that, checking, a lot of them are tied up waiting on some type of an information technologies fix. We're going to go back to the individual and find individuals in IT and find out what's going on with it, and then we'll do a follow-up on that. And if we can, we'll take another look at it and see if we can come up with some kind of an estimate, or at least give some sense for what dollars are tied up in that.
And I may not have, because I'm not as thoroughly read this as I typically read these reports, on unpaid parking tickets, on the outstanding municipal balances that have been issued for years. Can we have that quantified for our next meeting as well? Where do we stand on the implementation of those programs? Because once again, small dollars add up to large dollars, and the tickets are not being paid, fees are not being paid, etc. Is there a possibility that can be presented on a quantification basis?
We'll do the quantification on that.
For purposes of implementation of controls that have been previously recommended by the city auditor's office.
Yes.
And if I may, in regards to our building department, because I have some familiarity in consulting regularly about the way they work. Those things that we heard about today, where there's no follow through or no collection, but probably not the sort of things that should make anybody lose much sleep. And I can suggest to you that to simplify the scenario, when somebody wants to build a house, comes in with a bundle of their house plans, it's based on the value of the construction project, the complexity of the plan review that's necessary. I'm pretty darn sure that our people don't sit down and unroll those plans and start pulling all the code books to make sure everything fits right, the right size of wire and depth of excavation of concrete is done, until they have the money for that plan review. And this could be a tremendous amount of money if it's a grand, tall project, thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars for the plan review. Generally get the money up front before we do the work. Now, in the case of the house or the grand, tall building, if they decide never to build it, we might be anticipating that completion of the structure is going to require 8 to 10 to 500 inspections, depending on how complicated it will be. In each one of those, we would anticipate we collect money for. But if they never build the project, that unrealized revenue is not really a loss for us. So I don't think they're getting burned very often on money. And I can tell you one more thing, that within the last few days, I was contacted by the supervisor of inspectors. And I'm making an assumption here that if Acme Home Builder, who has our inspectors coming out every day, often because of the big project, probably not asking for cash, payment at the time the inspection's done. We bill them, they pay us, we expect that to happen. There are some instances where inspection fees have gone unpaid. The question that came to me from the building department is whether or not we can impose liens on those properties, and get ourselves in line for a slice of it. I've got it being researched now, so I just say that I don't think, because they're not fronting a lot of work, they're not fronting any money, we're probably not out a lot.
And I relate, John, to what you're saying with one exception. I put off the closing yesterday through title because I insisted that I have all information with respect to the trustee for this particular transaction for someone else, that I made sure everything was paid. And I would suggest to you that municipalities have not been paid. I would also suggest to you that it's a large developer in this community. I would also suggest to you that I have 5 properties that are all in the excess of $3 million range. Those fees have not been paid. I would suggest to you that we at least give some consideration to this matter, because folks have been getting away with this for a while. It's become practice, because they know that the follow-up need not take place. I would suggest to you that if I walk down and I want to draw a permit and I don't follow through with that permit, I concur with what you represent. But I would suggest to you that there are folks out there that are doing that. And I have a specific example of which, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to put on this record. But I made doggone sure the title yesterday that we are going to close without payments being made.
The department's not insensitive to it, and my guess is that most of it's on inspection rather than plan review.
And the fees that I was alluding to Brad, for the parking fees, you know,
Well, that's gonna be an interesting story.
That will be
He brings that to us, it's tough.
that's a really bad point. And the amnesty programs that are just thrown into the states.
Councilman?
Where were you? 2 minutes.
Put tears in his eyes. All right. Now that I've lost what I have, is there a motion on Brad's report?
So, second.
It's been moved and seconded. Citizens' participation, do we get any public comment at this time? If not, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, I didn't
Happy for you.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing? How's your day going?
Good.